jabs for jobs. I mean, weight loss injections to get unemployed, obese people thin enough to go back to work. It all sounds a bit sinister to me, slightly, a bit dystopian.
I think it's also rather gimmicky, actually, if you read into it, because it's 3,000 people on a 5-year trial.
Yeah.
Well, there'll be a general election been and gone by the next time that comes around. 3,000 people, it's not very many, and 5 years, it sounds like a gimmick.
Well, look, Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, has written in the Daily Telegraph about this morning. And he says this: he can harness the rapid advances in science and technology to improve the lives of British people. Obesity costs the NHS £11 billion a year. That is more than smoking costs the NHS. And we try and help people give up smoking, don't we? So, also, obesity holds back our economy. It causes people to take an extra 4 sick days a year, and many others are forced out of work altogether. So why not use a tried and tested drug to treat the condition which is costing the NHS and costing the economy? That would be his argument.
Well, why only 3,000 people over 5 years? It's ridiculous.
Because it's a trial.
Well...
And then we can see it's... I think it's one of the largest trials of its kind. And we can see whether it works or not.
But we know... We've seen the extraordinary success with ozempic already. We've seen extraordinary success with... I don't know why this is taking so long.
Is this a different drug?
OK.
Different manufacturer?
Yeah, if you want vomit and diarrhea, it's for you, I suppose, isn't it? I mean, it's got to be better if people have a healthier diet and exercise more. But I can see if you've lost control of your body, for whatever reason, you might need some help at the beginning. But the worry must be they don't change. People on it don't change their lifestyle. And if they come off the jabs, then they'll be ballooning out again.
That's the big issue, is that, as far as I can tell, the evidence shows that if you stay on the jabs, you maintain the weight loss. And when you come off the jabs, the weight
because they haven't changed their habits.
Exactly. But the Health Secretary says that the jabs are life-changing, but there will be a responsibility to take healthy living more seriously. The NHS, he says, can't be expected to always pick up the tab for unhealthy lifestyles. So the government's going to give children a healthy start in life, banning junk food ads targeted at children.
Obesity is a huge problem, and it's literally a growing problem. And if you can change kids coming through, stop them becoming obese, that's good. But people who are already there, some cases morbidly obese, if you can use science, medication, drugs to help them, then I suppose it is a good idea and worth giving a go. But it doesn't get over the fundamental problem, which is eating and exercise. There'll be some people with medical conditions. There'll be somebody just their DNA makes them bigger, whatever. If you can help them, it's great. But
am I the only person in this discussion who thinks it's slightly sinister?
Well, I'm concerned about... I'm somebody... I very rarely take medication. If I'm ill, I normally just try and get through it. So I don't like the idea of people going along and being injected like this.
It just strikes me as a kind of state interference into people's absolute private choices in how much they drink. And if it does work, right, I agree with you, it's a very long trial, isn't it? Why does it have to be 5 years? But if it does work, where do we go from there? What choices might people have? People who can't work because they're overweight. Well, if you don't have these injections, Mr. Smith, I'm afraid you're not getting...
Look, I'm not against state intervention. What I would call public health. For instance, Susanna mentioned smoking. Banning smoking in some areas, putting up prices, helping people get off smoking with patches, nicotine, whatever it is. And here it'll be voluntary. I don't think people are going to be selected and say, right, that's it, you're part of an experiment, you must be injected.
How do we know that this isn't the next thing of the nanny state?
That's exactly what I'm worried about. If it works,
hang on, nannies, look, I mean, people with money all have nannies. People with money can buy these injections. This is to help people who are unemployed, who haven't got the money.
It's got a point. What if the state then say,
what if
this has worked, we're going to compel people to have these injections?
What if?
Yeah.
But they're not.
Who are overweight
and
haven't worked. Yeah, but you don't know where this is going.
I think
I
we do.
also don't like the idea of the
think we
state
do.
basically stuffing stuff into our bloodstreams in order to socially manipulate it. I hate it.
So when people go to see the doctor, you go to a hospital and
That's
you're ill
choice.
and they're putting stuff in.
Well,
This will be choice. You're not going to be forced to have these
at the moment,
injections.
yeah.
So look, the state gives us medication all the time, and that's a good thing. It's called the National Health Service.
Yes, it's a good point. And the other issue, though, is that there are people who are currently obese who cannot get access to these drugs because the waiting list is so long.
Yeah.
There is a supply issue. So, but I'm not sure. It's an interesting point you raised, but I'm not sure at the moment the long-term suggestion is that the government goes around jabbing people with weight loss drugs.
I cannot see why this is going to take 5 years.
I think
if they really want to get to grips with this.
They want to see the effect on the economy. And if you're going to see an effect on the economy, I think that, obviously, it only takes a short period of time to see the effect on your waistline.
Yeah, which would make you more able to go back to work.
Yeah, but, unless you're morbidly obese, in which case...
Yeah.
And I also wonder how many people does this seriously affect? How many people are actually too obese not to be able to go to work? How many people are there in this country who are that seriously overweight?
Well, there's a lot of people, I think, who aren't at work who could be. And should be, in my view. And it could be that that's part of the problem, that they're just too big.
Obesity now is primarily linked to poverty, low incomes.
Yes.
Bad diet.
Back in Henry VIII's day, you had to be incredibly wealthy to be big because you couldn't afford to eat. But now it's people on cheaper food, cheaper processed food. And I think if you're going to help people in the long term for the economy and also themselves personally. It may be worth trying, but I just don't. It's not a wonder solution, is it?
All right, well, I'll park my concerns.
No, you won't. No, you won't. I know you never do.
I tell you what, I mean, talking about quick results, never mind 5 years, we do an item about this ridiculous situation on Northern, the rail line that's been prosecuting people for so-called fare dodging when they haven't been doing anything of the kind, and within 12 hours, they back down.
Yeah,
well done.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
I watched that yesterday. When you hear these cases, I always think, come on, there must be something more to it, right? And then there's not.
There's not.
They're not.
Exactly.
They have been treated incredibly badly. And the train company got it absolutely wrong.
Well, let's remind you, yesterday we spoke to two rail travellers who had been prosecuted. Threatened with prosecution. One of them had been fined almost £500 after being caught out by confusing ticketing rules on their railcard discount. Both Sam Williamson and Philip Hilsden had mistakenly underpaid their fares by, get this, less than £2. Here's what they told us on the show yesterday.
At the time, I offered to buy a new ticket, pay the difference, whatever it took to just solve it in the here and now. I was going down to London. I had my driving theory test that afternoon, ironically enough. I kind of just didn't want anything more to think about. And then, obviously, a month later down the line, I get this letter from Northern saying about potential prosecution.
So the original ticket, the non-discounted price is £4.30. The discount price that I paid was £3. So that's £1.30 sort of difference, which is about 350 times. The fine is 350 times the amount that I actually saved.
We had a massive response from you after those interviews, and as I say, it's been less than 24 hours since we did those interviews. And now Northern, the rail company concerned, have backtracked and withdrawn all live prosecution cases against all the passengers. It also appears the company broke its own fare evasion rules. They were actually at fault, not just kind of morally, but technically, by not allowing passengers the chance to pay back the difference on the spot, which they were supposed to do under their own rules. That's something both Sam and Phil offered to do, obviously, but they were told they couldn't. Great news for both of them, and this was their reaction to the announcement.
I think it shows that Northern are willing to, reconsider some of the previous decisions, which is a good sign. Equally, the work isn't done yet. Particularly, I'm concerned with the cases of some of these previously prosecuted people who still have had these fines levied against them and still have a mark on their criminal record.
There is an element that it does feel like lip service. It seems like it's a very structured PR statement to put out from a company. It's not really apologising for the harm that it's caused.
Well, Northern also confirmed that as well as withdrawing the live cases concerning young person railcards, they're also reviewing similar previous prosecutions. Well done to Sam and Phil for speaking out.
But well done for you guys for exposing it, because otherwise nothing would have changed.
Yeah, and...
These rail companies are shocking. If I had £1 for Secretaries of State for Transport who says we're going to make sure that pricing is less complicated, if you use a machine, the cheapest fare comes up, it doesn't. It's really expensive.
With 55 million different fare combinations we found out there were yesterday.
And if you manage to get to a ticket office, they're fantastic, the staff, because they take great pride in getting you the cheapest fare. Sometimes you can save tens of pounds on one fare.
Just to point out, the issue with Sam there, who was the student who had raised all of this in the first place, was that he had bought a ticket using his rail card, and it was an any-time ticket.
Yeah.
But when the inspector looked at it, he said, any-time
this time
does not mean before 10 o'clock in the morning between September and May, using your rail card if the fare was under £12.
You need a degree.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what you need.
Well, he had a degree.
Exactly. Yeah. But it's not
still
clever.
fell foul.
These rail companies, it's Byzantine. It's complex.
Northern will now be worried about everybody who's been done in the past. It's a bit like the post office.
Just them.
It's a mini version of the post office.
But it's not just them. They're all at it.
Yeah. But they will all come back now. But the company will know the legal implications of this, because there are people who genuinely go out to dodge fares, but then there are other people caught by the system being so complicated.
Yes.
And I think the time you could use your rail card for that ticket had changed.
It's also, to the people who've been wrongly accused, it's the sheer tackiness of being accused of being a fare dodger. When you're not a fare dodger, you would never dream of doing anything like that, and yet you have that label because of their Byzantine rules, their misapplication.
Well, but the interesting thing in this case is that they broke their own rules. Because under their own rules, passengers with a rail card travelling on the wrong train must be offered the chance to pay back the difference on the spot.
So their own inspectors didn't know what they were doing.
No.
Their own inspectors didn't understand what their job was.
Yeah,
well, that's poor training. And I'm going to blame the inspectors. It's the training by the company of those inspectors.
Or the company want the inspectors to do that because they get more money that
way. Well, I suppose, yes, it's revenue, isn't it?
Rip-off. They're rip-off companies, these companies.
Talking about raising more money, is there going to be a hike in national insurance payments for employers? Now, we are in the month of the budget. We have speculation about what's going to be in the budget every single day. But I think, the closest to confirmation so far in an interview between ITV News' Joel Hill and the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, from yesterday. Let's have a listen.
The commitments in our manifesto were specific around taxes on working people.
Well, you said you wouldn't put national insurance up. What you're saying, though, is if you put it up for businesses, actually you would not be breaking a manifesto promise. Is that correct?
Joel, you've read our manifesto, and our manifesto was really clear. Our manifesto was really clear in black and white that commitment was around taxes on working people.
OK, so that was Joel Hills from ITV News. Were they absolutely clear in their manifesto?
No, they said they would not raise VAT, income tax, national insurance
on working people.
On working people.
No, I don't think. I think it's too. It's not. I don't think it's a. No. I used to sometimes check when we talk about income tax, VAT, and national insurance. I'd say employees' national insurance. It was quite clear because there's two classes of national insurance.
You've just inserted another word into the manifesto.
I've been clearer.
Employees' national insurance.
Yeah, the Conservatives missed a trick. When you saw working people, it's what you pay as a working person. Your income tax, your national insurance, and your VAT.
Yeah.
No one goes around saying, "Oh, my employer is paying 13.8% national insurance on what I get. That's a tax on me."
If you're running a small business,
yes,
you are also a working person.
Yes, you are.
But the rise is bound to be transferred.
But that's not how you take your money out.
It's bound to be transferred to the working people, as Robert Peston said yesterday when he was analysing it. What this means is that employers who are now having to pay more, if this happens, having to pay more national insurance, they will be less happy to offer pay rises
or take
freeze
on
pay,
staff.
And then there's pension.
But I think
there's pension contributions. They will probably freeze those as well.
Whatever she says, the Chancellor, this is a breach of the spirit of the manifesto, isn't it? Because national insurance is going up for employers, some of whom employ 20 people, 40 people.
They'll pass it on to their employees.
They will, or they won't take on staff.
Your dozy lot missed it. Your dozy lot miss it. It's not a break of the manifesto. There is a question.
It is a breach of the spirit.
No, I clocked it. I could see it, and I often wondered why they weren't making it, because we had many discussions about the big black hole in Labour's finances and the big black hole in the Conservatives' finances. The Institute of Fiscal Studies would point this out, and we'd complain about the lack of honesty in the debate and what taxes were going to go up, because Labour had a limited programme that they said about 9 billion school fees, non-DOMs, plug in a few private equity.
How much will they raise with this?
Oh, God. If you put national insurance
17 billion.
You can get, I think that's a bit high.
Billion.
It depends whether you go. You could do both, but I don't think it's unlikely. If you
and you see the impact
if you put up 1%, national insurance employers is 13.8% the contribution on what they pay.
Yep.
And if you put it at 1%, I think it's about 8 to 9 billion.
Right.
If pension contributions are exempt from employers' national insurance contributions, if you put national insurance on them, I think it's about 14 billion. So it's a lot of money.
So setting aside the breach of trust then, in terms of what they were saying they wouldn't do, is it a good idea?
I don't believe you. I think it's a tax on jobs. It's a tax on jobs, and I think small businesses in particular will be absolutely devastated by this. Small businesses are the lifeblood of this economy. Everyone thinks, people say employers, oh, that's,
the big employers.
The big employers.
Say what?
A lot of small people who employ 20 people, 40 people, they're going to be whacked by this. And they thought, when they voted Labour, no rise in national insurance.
You've got to, if you want
people, because they are working people. People who run small businesses are working people.
You know working people was referring to employees. Come on. You know what it was at the
time. They're working people. You're insulting plumbers who've got 40 people on their books, but they're not working people.
Plumbers, 40 people on their books. Most plumbers are self-employed or employed.
You know what I mean?
But anyway, I think the breach of trust is not the argument. The argument is how you're going to raise cash.
OK, but listen to Robert Peston. You'd already referenced ITV's Robert Peston. But I love this line. In economic terms, putting up employers' national insurance is unambiguously the quacking duck of an attack on working people. It only quacks slightly less loudly in politics if most voters expect all politicians to play fast and loose with the common sense meaning of manifesto.
I think that's quackers. I think right. There is an issue around the tax, but you've got to raise money unless you want cuts in public services. If you want public services to be revived, and we know they're on there, we know they're on the knees, you're going to have to raise cash.
Okay.
They've lied. People see it as a lie.
It's not a lie.
It is a lie.
Possibly an even larger question, which I'm sure is dominating conversations around your breakfast table this morning, certainly as you were watching the various newses last night, was the grope a joke? Was what we saw on Strictly, which I think we can see again in a second, was it a joke, do you think, as the couple concerned say that it was?
Look, I found this very uncomfortable.
I do. I'll look at it.
So this is at the weekend, and it's Wyn and Katia, who are favourites in the competition. One of the favourites. They're an exceptionally talented couple together. But as you just saw, there was an awkward moment on screen where Wyn puts his hand around Katia's waist and she moves it back. And then separately, there was this kind of high five. He puts up his hands. She leaves him hanging. They absolutely insist that this was a silly joke, that they've got a great relationship, they're very close, and they kind of play little jokes on screen, and this has been completely misinterpreted. And I think you have to take it as what they said. I mean, if Katia says she's not uncomfortable and she's fine, what else is she supposed to do?
Well, she looked very uncomfortable when she moved his hand.
She did.
If it's their joke or his joke. And look, the way the hand goes around, it's quite high on the waist, actually. I mean, I'm sorry, it looked. It did. If that was his joke rather than their joke, it's backfired badly on him.
And you were explaining to me like a high five joke, which you think is more likely to be a joke, because it's a common game, isn't it? People give you a high five and you drop your hand. It's like putting your hand away from the
teenagers
handshake.
do
But
it.
her expression is not amused. It's not like, ha-ha,
it's
gotcha.
contempt.
She looks cross.
She does.
She looks really cross with him.
Oh, you know, somebody might wonder if there's just huge pressure put on you on a programme like this to try and explain away awkward moments because it's a family show. You want to keep the show on the road.
And she wants to stay in business.
Yeah,
and she's got a partner who's doing well, who's getting high marks, so she could go a long way as a professional.
And Strictly's been hit by the bullying row, so you don't want anything else to come along. But that, I'm afraid, that hand, if that was his joke, not their joke, it was ill-judged, inappropriate.
Yeah,
really was.
And I think they both have maintained it was a silly joke that backfired. Just let you know that since we've been talking about jabs for jobs, lots of people have been getting in touch. So, particularly, I mentioned the fact that people who currently want to get these weight loss jabs can't get them. Michelle says, what a joke. I have to pay privately to get this particular weight loss drug. It's £149 a month.
Gosh.
But Shell desperately medically needs it and points out that's my prize for working. Just another thing jobless people get. Why should any of us bother to work anymore? Fiona says, if you don't work, you get free weight loss, but if you do work and pay taxes and NI, you get no help. When are we going to stop the free handouts for people who don't pay into the system? Anonymous via email, how much more are the unemployed going to get? What about us hard workers who would love help to lose weight, but can't get help through the NHS?
I can't see one message supporting the idea, actually. Not a single one.
Yeah, it's not a great life if you're unemployed, which is probably why all those people, I can see their legitimate concern, they can't afford it. They're not going to become unemployed because they won't be able to pay their bills and they wouldn't find it the great life of luxury they're suggesting. But I can see also, equally, when you can't get what you need, you find it resentment. There's very few people going to get it, as Andrew said, and it's only a try.
Very good point here from someone called Steph, who says, what's going to happen when they stop giving it to them? Because they can't give it to them for the rest of their working lives.
Well, they get it for
and
5
the weight
years.
goes back on again.
Yeah. Well,
become unemployed again. I don't know. I mean,
exactly.
I'd like to know what proportion of people who are unemployed can't get a job because they're overweight. But I can also see if you're unemployed, you sometimes need a carrot as well as a stick to try and get you ship to be employed.
That drug comes down in price, actually. I mean, £149 a month.
It is a heck of a lot.
A lot of money, isn't it?
Now, look, this debate over phones, mobile phones in schools, rumbles on and on. God, I'm so glad it wasn't excellent when our kids were at school. I don't know what we would have done. There's going to be a private members' bill, probably put before the House of Commons quite soon, this session, I think, where phones are, it's suggested that phones are banned completely from schools. It hasn't gone into detail of quite how that would work. I mean, would you leave them at the school gates? Would you hand them in? Would you have to leave them at home? But that's the proposal, because the damage it's doing to kids who are spending so long scrolling through quite often very damaging stuff, is just, it's got to be addressed in some way.
Well, some schools do it already, of course.
I think most do. Most have a policy.
Yeah.
And the last government, the Conservative government, gave guidance that mobile phones should not be used throughout the school day. That's non-statutory. This would call for an absolute ban. Trouble is, of course, lots of schools use mobile phones as screens.
They do.
So actually they are a tool in the classroom. And so to say that you can't use it at all is going to be very hard.
And then you're going to have the fight with the parents who want the child to have the phone.
Yep.
It's a real problem, because they might want to contact the child during the day. It's very complicated.
The other thing is that how does the ban work? Because where do you put your phone during the day?
Schools have different policies on that, but I've known some, when you go into a classroom, you have to put it at the front, you know, there's like almost like a shoe rack. You put your phone in. Others, when you go into the school, you have to put it in a locker at the beginning of the day and get it at the end of the day. Others, you can take them in, but you've got to keep it in your bag and you can't produce it. You know, the different schools have different solutions.
But I agree, it's a complicated thing to apply, but we've got to do something. I mean, one of the things that shocked me a few months ago when I read it was the proportion of children of primary school age who have actually seen on their phones in the playground and shared it around real-life beheadings. Yeah, absolutely. That's what they are looking at in the playground. Actual beheadings, most of them taking place at points in the Middle East.
What would be more radical is, do you stop children that young having smartphones?
And having what we used to call the brick phone.
A brick phone, where they can just use it to call mum or dad or whatever, but no access to the internet. That would be much more radical, and that would be much more a very better area.
This bill would raise.
Why do these children need to be on the internet? 7, 8.
This bill would raise to 16 from 13 the point of adulthood on phones, what you can see. But in the end, you've got to. It's the providers. It's the great.
The tech companies
exactly.
who are earning billions and billions.
Well, that's why they do it.
And yet they're the ones in charge of the content you're talking about.
They get away with literally murder.
Well,
literally murder.
They really are, aren't they?
But is it beyond the tech ingeniousness of these companies to produce an iPhone which can work as a full iPhone at a point, but can be disabled so it works in the same way?
Well,
as
I don't think they want to, Richard. I think they're making too much money.
No, I wouldn't have thought it's beyond.
I'd buy that for my kids.
Yeah, it's whether they want to do it. Now, kids will always try and get around it or get other people to get around. That's all right. It's just that's how life is and progress is in some ways. But you can just have a greater effort because you've got to protect. You're right. Some kids are taking their lives because of this.
Yeah,
suffering appallingly from bullying and yes, seeing beheadings, seeing porn, seeing images they should never see at that age.
Porn, absolutely.
That's a better discussion and debate. I think should these smartphones be banned for kids under the age of 16 or 14?
But this bill will only become law because it's an MP, new MP for working in Whitehaven up in Cumbria. It'll only become law if the government adopts it. Or gives it time in Parliament because it's a private member's
wait
bill.
for the whales of protest from the phone companies.
Andrew, Kevin, thank you very much indeed.